Welcome to the Selling in the Motor Trade podcast, in association with symcotraining. This is the weekly podcast where we share best practice, tips and ideas on how to sell more cars, improve your service department, and generally put more profit into your dealership or dealer group. I'm your host, Simon Bowkett. Now, some of you probably already know me as Skippy. I would start by saying thank you for taking the time to listen to this podcast. Hi, and welcome to another episode of Selling in the Motor Trade. Today it's my pleasure to be joined with Kenneth Purdon. Now, Kenneth runs the specialist car buyer. So he's got his ear and his eyes on the market all the time on what's happening in specialist cars and the used car market. So we're going to put the world to right on where the industry is currently, where the industry is going, what the future looks like. So Kenneth, welcome aboard and thank you for joining us on the show.
Morning, Simon. Thanks for having me.
So, Kev, to start off with, tell our listeners a little bit about yourself. How did you get started in the motor trade?
Crikey. Basically, I bumped into a lovable rogue who offered me a job back in 2003. Basically, working for a used car centre up here. Chap called Arnold Clark.
Oh, yes. He's got a few little shops, hasn't he?
He has.
Yeah,
he has. He's done not too bad for himself. So it started all there. Then progressed very much going.
So 2003, sorry to cut you off, you'd be speaking to, working directly with Mr. Clark then?
I wasn't working directly with him, but I was working in one of the branches that he regularly visited.
Yeah, okay. I just love the Mr. Clark stories about how he would visit so many dealerships all the time.
Oh, it's phenomenal. Just basically, he also knew everyone by their first name as well when he came in.
Yeah.
He was such a hands-on guy, and customers loved him. And customers were, it was very approachable. I always remember the sales manager was always nervous when Mr. Clark walked in if you're sitting with a customer because he knew straight away that deal was getting done, irrespective.
Would he just throw the world at it?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Hello, I'm Mr. Clark. How much do you want for your car? Done deal.
Yeah. He loved closing deals, and he was a salesman. He loved doing that. That was what he was all about. But what a business he built up. Phenomenal.
Exactly. Absolutely. I know Eddie Hawthorne would listen to this podcast regularly, and I don't know the truth of this story, and these stories get embellished all the time, and I quite love it, and it quite tells you a lot about the man, actually. So again, this might be all made up, it might be wives' tales and all that sort of stuff there, but the story I heard from a man working in a Peugeot dealership, actually, up in Glasgow, who worked for him. Apparently one day they're in the board meeting, and no one disturbs the board meeting, but the receptionist came in and said, Mr. Clark, it's just your wife on the phone. He said, well, I better take this. And Kenneth, apparently the conversation was something along the lines of, no, dear. No, leave it. Don't call an engineer. I'll have a look at it when I get home. No, it'll be fine. Hangs the phone up and everyone's looking at him. So he feels like he has to explain. And he says, well, the heating's not working at home and she wants to get an engineer out. I know not why it's not working, because I took the fuse out. And he takes the fuse out of his pocket because she has it on all day. Now, I'm almost certain it's made up a little bit, but I kind of like the idea that he's built such a great business, but still keeps his eyes on the pennies all the time.
Yeah. That wasn't made up. That probably happened.
That probably happened.
Yes.
That probably happened. You've got to really respect what that man has built. So you started with Mr. Clark then. Okay. And where was your journey from there?
Yeah, very much so. So then basically I went to work with Mercedes-Benz dealership, another lovable role called Glenn Henderson, Crikey in Ayrshire. Then from there ended up back with BMW, which was owned by Arnold Clark, was under Harry Fairbairn. Back to Mercedes, and then off to Porsche. It was quite interesting. I was watching a comment Dale put up recently in Suzuki about mystery shops, and I was working with a Porsche brand, and so heavy into customer care. Mm-hmm. Just very so switched on about how to look after that customer ownership journey, not just the purchase, the ownership journey. Yeah. So fairly successful there, and then that was with Sytner, and went over to Edinburgh, to Bentley, Edinburgh, and thoroughly enjoyed working there as well. Fantastic brand, really good people around the business as well. and basically, we ended up being an award-winning centre. It's phenomenal.
So, Kenneth, this is a question that we ask all our guests. It really sorts out the motor traders from the real people that have it in their blood. Do you remember the first car you sold?
I do indeed, yeah. It was a Rover 25 Impression.
A Rover 25. Okay, that is...
the rear windscreen wiper was an option.
Love it. Absolutely love it. Now, this is a shameless plug for our first 90-day program, where we often say that the skills that we learn in our first 3 months, good and bad, last us for the rest of our career. Hey, Kenneth, is there anything you learned in that first 3 months at Arnold Clark there that you think is as relevant today as it is for someone who's just starting the motor trade right now?
Definitely. 2 ears and one mouth.
Yeah.
Really, really basics. Sit and listen and listen to what they're saying and respond to what they're saying, not what you think they've said.
Yeah. Isn't that so true there? I tell you what, we often say there's 3 sales in any sale. You have to sell yourself first, the product second, and then the deal or the numbers. And too often, in the market we've been through recently, Kenneth, I still hear salespeople trying to sell the deal first, the deal second, deal third. And they've just not listened to the customer and sold themselves and shown empathy.
Yeah, it's a big problem we have. It's what we spoke about. We spoke about obviously the agency model, and it's a big issue because thinking about things over the weekend. When was the last time somebody had to prospect? When was the last time you had to pick up that phone and make that first impression over a phone call?
Yeah.
Sales. Is all about the individual, particularly when it's coming to buying a car, because it's the second most expensive thing you end up committing to.
Yeah, it's the market's starting to change now, isn't it? You talk about prospecting, and it's I suppose it's the VIP events that Rhino do and stuff like that. I seen on some social media that they're starting to do some of those. You're starting to get some of our clients are saying, hey, we need to start speaking to our database again there. So it's starting to change. You've got your ear to the ground. What's happening to the market out there on the used car side of it?
Used car markets is certainly on the specialist division at this point in time is very buoyant. It is a seasonal industry at this level. So the market is going well. We monitor basically the current stock position across different media streams out there of what there is out there for sale. And we do see a drop-off of aging stock. So it would tell us that, there's people out there certainly buying cars, certainly people out there contacting us to represent and source vehicles as well. So it's picked up, but, this industry and the specialist side of things always does tend to run between, now all the way up to probably November. When it comes to December, January and February, you really are, you're working doubly hard and you're more of a hunter as opposed to actually a farmer at that point in time. When it comes to obviously, likes of the middle market as well, I think there's a wee bit of a drop-off just now. There's a bit of uncertainty in the market because, what do we go out and buy? Do we buy an electric vehicle? Do we buy... Yeah. Do you want to buy a diesel? I mean, there's a lot of cities putting in ULEZ laws as well. So it's interesting times. I've never experienced it as quite the way it is.
Yeah, that's true. There's a stat that you told me on your sent through on LinkedIn or one of the social media programs that what percentages of the cars over, I think it was 100,000, you said we're at 90 days. What do you have that number to hand?
Yeah, so basically you're looking at about roughly 90-day average of stock in the region of 33% in some of the brands, but across all the brands, so looking at the likes of Bentley, Aston Martin, Ferrari, Lamborghini, and McLaren, it's sitting at 28% as an average.
So 28% of those vehicles are over 90 days?
Yeah.
Okay.
90 days in stock currently just now.
Now, I wouldn't know that market, that specialist market at all. I don't deal with it all the time. So is that normal? Is that, listen, from a volume dealer, that sounds scary, that sort of thing, especially with what we've been through. Is that standard in that world?
It's fairly standard just because of the type of cars and just the type of marketplace it is. What I would say though is, which is I find really quite interesting, is that actually 60-day to 90-day point. There's you've got cars in stock just now which are 90 days old and older, and from 60 to 90 days there certainly seems to be a lot less of them, and there's a lot of fresh stock that's been bought recently as well, which you can see in the market. So the market's in a good shape, very good shape in specialist cars right now.
Yeah, but also over the last couple of years, I suppose that specialist car dealer, the price of that car's just going up every month, isn't it? Can it continue to go up there? Is it really an issue having 90-day stock if it's you've got a Rolex that keeps going up in value, or you've got a timer that keeps going up in value?
The manufacturers have increased the prices of their cars. They keep increasing the prices of the cars as well, so that has an effect to it. It's supply and demand, Simon. That's what it comes down to. Very much down to supply and demand, and it's the same in every area and facet of the motor trade. Supply and demand. If the supply is there and the demand is not there, then you have stock issue problems. But it's very much more focusing, on stock turn.
Yeah. It's one of my very first sales managers. He went off and bought himself a garden centre. And he's a really nice guy. And he said, what a brilliant business I'm in. My overage stock, I increase it at the price of it because the plant just keeps on growing and growing and growing. So yeah, it's more for it. Whereas in our world, it's all about turn that stock. But that brings me on to EV vehicles, okay?
Yeah.
So we know that Elon Musk, Tesla, registered something like 20%. Or 25%, I think it may have been, Kenneth, of last year's volume in December. Of course, I think it was the 6th of January. He discounted cars, was it 19% or something like that? There's a further reduction. I wouldn't like to be the customer who picked up their car on the 23rd of December, waking up to news. That killed the residual values, not just on Tesla, all electric vehicles. I think there's lots of people that had a bit of pain there. Now, having said that, I want to get your views. The price of all these electric vehicles in the market came back lots. However, the dealers who turned their stock very quick, took the first pain, and then went out and bought electric vehicles at the right price, I tell you, I think they're doing really good money. I know that iPace is out there at the moment. We work with a client that's doing exceptionally well with them. Mark Napton, great friend of the show. I know they've done very, very well with electric vehicles as well. I just want you to get your views on the current market in electric vehicles. Is it time to get into them? In your world, I'm sure you're looking at Taycan, or however I pronounce that.
Yeah, I mean, it's very much down to an individual choice. If it's something you're buying for you as a personal purchase, then if you're looking from a residual point of view, we have this objective of 2025 and 2030 coming over. So, we have to go into these years with already having electric cars being bought in EVs. And the way I look at it is from a zero CO point. Zero CO2 point, as opposed to actually just electric, because hydrogen coming on board as well. So there's a lot, there's a lot of change. And one of the things that I'm sitting looking at, and certainly how the market's looking at, is effectively, depending on what you're going to use the car for. And if it's an electric vehicle, you're looking for small in-town journeys. If it's a longer journey vehicle, maybe you should be looking at a hybrid instead of queuing up at all these charging points up the M6. So it's getting that balance and making that balance work. Then there's talk of synthetic fuel. But an interesting point, Simon, is I believe Tesla have made another price reduction in the States as well. So they are Elon Musk, very successful business, knows what he's doing. But a lot of the success that they've had has been when everyone else has been closed, been shut down. The options really, if you want to go and buy a car, you'd go and buy a Tesla because it was easy and it was attainable, because you couldn't get out of your house, you couldn't visit the dealerships. And an interesting point I was looking at this morning, actually, over in China, is basically, roughly in 2022, they produced 27 million cars. 7 million of those were EV.
Right.
And that's the market is growing. That's the market. That's the opportunity. that is there. But the previous year, they produced 21.5 million vehicles. So in the domestic market, they're doing phenomenally well, selling a lot of cars, and a lot of the marketplace with the OEMs established here in the UK are regressing.
Mm. Yeah, I'm just thinking from the dealer's perspective. Buying used electric vehicle at the moment, we know that 2030, this is when we have to go all internal combustion engine. It has to be hybrid or electric. We understand that. Everyone tells me about infrastructure is not going to be there. Do you feel that's going to roll back? Okay, governments, it depends on which government is in power at the time. But is that going to happen, do you think? I mean, Volvo, for example, they're saying 2025, I think, is a full electric range. 2 years away. That's not long.
It's not long at all. And where do you charge them? And where is it reliable to charge them as well? I mean, you mentioned Porsche Taycan. One of the stats I've got here is just now on that individual model, there's literally 36% of those cars are 90 days and old in stock.
Wow.
So we have to wonder, just exactly how are things progressing, because an electric car's got a price point. And what is that price point? Is it, is it from 30 to 60? Because certainly, from the stats here, showing over £100,000, or £80,000 even, because that's how I based it upon, 36% of them are effectively 90 days old.
Yeah,
so
that is a very, very interesting stat. I suppose the other thing with electric vehicles, and I think it's a challenge. I don't know how the manufacturer does this. One day in my life, I mentioned to you before that I drove the Taycan. It was the Audi, the e-tron, same vehicle. I'm sure it was a EV6, and it was the Hyundai equivalent, and it was lots of these different cars all in one day. And the downside is, if you could shut your eyes driving that car, you didn't know which one you're in. And I think that's going to be a challenge where electric motor is electric motor. A battery's a big battery or it's a small battery. And I gotta say, out of all those cars in the day, I think the Kia EV6 was probably the nicest. Now, 10 years ago, you would never be comparing a Taycan to an EV6. And maybe people think I'm mad for still making that comparison, but I've got to say it drove very, very nice. How does the manufacturer make an electric vehicle different, and what challenges you think the the old guard have got with the Chinese coming through in that?
Yeah, it's an interesting point, because they'll have a shared platform. So, Lotus, Polestar, the Geely organization, 2 cars, the Polestar 4, the Electra, and Lotus. Great looking cars, but you can see similar design cues and similar design points in the interior of the vehicles as well. Volkswagen group have the same situation with, ID4, Audi's offering, Volkswagen's offering, and Seat's offering right now.
And Skoda,
yeah. So individuality is could become an issue because they have these shared platforms, but they're not dynamic enough with the way the cars look. When I was growing up here in the UK, a Ford Escort and a Maestro looked totally different. I'm showing my age now, but whereas it's very much more, shall we say, uniformity and all looking very, very similar to each other.
Yeah. Having said that, Volkswagen Audi Group does have the MBA and MBQ, I think, platforms, which, they even train all of their salespeople now that, yes, this 80% of the car might be the same from the Seat range to the Audi range. This is the unique things there. So I suppose they have been doing it for a while. Maybe I'm being paranoid about something I don't need to. But the reason why I say that, though, is what about the Chinese coming through? Yeah. The Chinese are coming in different markets. I think they're already there, further established, but in Europe, they're definitely coming.
Definitely coming in Europe. But I mean, please don't take this the wrong way, but it's a lot of it's been put upon a lot of different dealers and different dealer groups in the UK. I mean, this agency-based model really, really has got a lot of people's backs up, and there's a limited supply of used cars out there. So what is the alternative if they choose to take the signs off the door? Well, the opportunity is China. We've seen it before. I mean, you just have to look at AMG right now. I worked with the AMG Rover brand, Phoenix days and before Phoenix days, and now look at AMG right now. It's really, really coming back. I mean, the convertible they launched in Shanghai, stunning looking car. And guess what? The dealer network's going to be in place. The dealer network is in place, and they're very much capitalizing on that interaction face to face. So they have a good hybrid model. And I think the answer is that a lot of dealers in the UK will put, simply enough, these cars into their dealerships, into their businesses.
I'm so impressed with what MG has done, because their electric offering right in that lockdown, when a lot of people couldn't get EV vehicle, I think they could still get it. That must have helped them. But again, the range, what they've done with that car, I think has really, really helped them.
Definitely fantastic. And the brand's so appealable to the masses as well. They've really have done a fantastic job. I remember way back the days of selling City Rovers, and you look at what they offer now, in such a short period of time, I say 10 years period of time, it's amazing how that brand has came on, and how they're performing. But again, this is something that a lot of the manufacturers in the UK have to be really, really wary of, because a dealer, people deal with dealers and deal with retailers, and they will be able to showcase these products to those people.
Yeah. Do you think the traditional OEMs, the Ford, the Volkswagen Group, the Peugeot, Citroën, do they have to be worried about the Chinese coming through?
Definitely. So, the market is ever evolving, it's ever changing, and everyone wants to gain what's called fixed costs. So if you were to, for example, BYD announced that they're bringing out a vehicle called the Seagull, which is going to be a market at $11,000 currently just now.
US dollars.
US dollars.
Yeah. So
that car coming over here, it's a Hyundai i10 size vehicle, comes over to the UK marketplace. If you're to facilitate a finance transaction using a PCP on it, it's fixed costs. And that's what people are looking for, because they don't want to necessarily spend more and have less.
Yeah. It's even the names. Some of the names, when you think Build Your Dream. And when I first heard of this, I thought, oh, hold on, Build Your Dream. Is this really good? But again, making huge waves out there. Great Wall. It's huge waves. I think they're going to continue to happen, and all the others out there, it's going to continue to happen.
Definitely, Simon. I mean, it's growing, and you have to look also Geely, for example. The success they've had and what they've done in the industry in Europe. With Volvo. I mean, look at how fantastic is a Volvo. I mean, they really have changed things around, and that brand is massively successful. I mean, I remember selling BMWs and selling Mercedes, and somebody came in and said, "Oh, I'm looking at a Volvo." You were like, "Okay, please go ahead." Now I'd be quite concerned.
Yeah, okay, but even Kia. I got to say, Kia has 10 years, 15 years. The Koreans have really changed. That Kia is almost premium. It's going into that premium level, isn't it? It really is there. Now, again, some of the people listening here for BMW say, no, don't be so silly. But when you jump in that EV6, you go for a drive. Stunning car.
So, I mean, Kia, Hyundai, I mean, if we were to, I don't know about you, Simon, but I remember watching a program that used to be on TV regularly called 24. And in that series, they drove Genesis product. And we're like, what's that? It was available in America. We never had it here in the UK, but now it's here. I mean, look how good their cars are. Phenomenal.
Yeah, it is. That just leaves me to say that all details of this episode and other episodes on the selling in the motor trade can be found on our website, symcotraining.co.uk. Go there to get a copy of our book, Words That Sell Cars. Go there to sign up to a free
trial of our Sales Fitness online sales training program. Easiest way to get hold of me is Simon Bowkett through LinkedIn. Thank you.